Surprised myself, folks. I didn't have any technical difficulties. Oh, but look, we've got company tonight. Yeah, the furry roommates saw me getting set up down here, and I think they felt like this is just too much fun. So this is Joey. This is not infamous tech support puppy. He's chewing on something upstairs. Hopefully it's one of his toys. But anyway, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another week of good nature. Yeah, we might have a few more interruptions tonight. These guys just came in. They love this cold weather. Hopefully the fire here will provide a soothing atmosphere for them, and they'll settle down. If not, we might have a few more interruptions as we have our fireside chat for this evening. So why don't you go ahead, get comfortable, maybe pour yourself a warm beverage, sit back, relax. Let's dive into this week's show. Oh, and there's the other. Oh, Jimmy the cat just made an audio cameo there. He might come back again. We'll see. He might not ever come back because now he's getting chased by tech support puppy. All right, let's get our screen share going here. From the beginning. All right, so this past week, the topic in the newspaper and on Kane County Connects was bird feeders. And maybe some of you were lucky enough to receive a gift of a bird feeder. I think I made a little joke in the article about how they seem like they're a pretty straightforward, no need to call in for setup advice type of gift. But sometimes what is simple and straightforward does end up having a little bit more to it. One of the things, if you are new to bird feeding, it might be good if you got that bird feeder for Christmas. It might be good to learn just a little bit about the types of birds that are drawn to the style of feeder that you have. And if you just have one style, you might want to consider, if you want to attract a maximum number of birds, you might want to consider maybe adding on to that with a few other styles. Here we've got some finches at a tube feeder, and then also some finches at a sock feeder. These sock feeders typically are single use. Sometimes they can be washed and refilled with Niger seed, which is also called thistle seed, even though it's not true thistle. Goldfinches are heavily tied to thistle plants, but the seed that's sometimes labeled as thistle in stores is actually another plant called Niger. Anyway, it's a thin little seed. Finches tend to love it. Here we've got a hopper feeder. This was actually a gift I received several years ago from my aunt and uncle. We put regular seed mix in the hopper part, and then it had suet cages on either end. Suet is a big draw for birds like woodpeckers, but you'll also see chickadees feeding heavily. I know that it's funny for wildlife. Wintertime is a time to get really calorie dense types of foods, and suet is a great way to add that. So are the high oil content seeds like sunflower seeds. Some birds like to feed on open platforms, and then other birds will feed on the ground. Some of our wintering sparrow species, as well as mourning doves, they can often be found scratching on the ground. Sometimes you can get some of those birds, like the doves, up on the platform feeders as well. But for attracting the maximum variety of birds, you want to offer different types of seeds and different types of feeders to attract all these different feeding styles. Now, as you're looking at what comes to your feeders, house finches are pretty common in this area. Check out, and let me see, I thought I'd conquered this black box issue at the bottom of the screen. Well, in case you can't see it, the species name for our local house finch is Mexicanus. That kind of gives us a little bit of the background of this bird. It wasn't originally found here in Illinois, or in fact, anywhere in the eastern part of the United States. This was a bird, some people call them Hollywood finches. They were shipped out east from the West Coast and sold as caged birds, but some were released, some escaped. Anyway, they are pretty well established now across the continental United States. You might, well, if you offer bird seed, you're very likely to get house finches. This year, though, it's worth to take a closer look at some of those birds. You might look at some bird that at first might appear house finch-like, but it's not. It's the common redpoll. We're seeing these in this area. Bob, you did a great birding spotlight on common redpolls. Was that just today? It was just recently. This is what we call an eruptive species, not eruptive like a volcano, but eruptive with an I. And it means that they come down to this area in large groups, usually driven by a search for food. Maybe something has changed in their typical overwintering area, so they come down here. We don't always see common redpolls, so if you think you have a house finch, but gee whiz, that bill looks a little funny and the red is just on the tippy top of the head, you might have attracted common redpolls to your feeding station. That's pretty awesome. American goldfinch, we see these birds throughout the winter. These are the birds that in the summertime, some people will call them wild canaries because they get that bright yellow plumage, the males, especially during the breeding season. In the winter, they're a little bit more muted. Now, we are sometimes lucky enough to see these birds, which sometimes people think, oh, gosh, it's a finch. It's a goldfinch. It's a finch. It's not a goldfinch though. These guys are pine siskins. Look at the difference in the plumage of the breasts of these two birds. The pine siskin is pretty heavily streaked. The goldfinch has a clear breast. Pine siskins, to my eye, seem a little bit smaller too. But then if we look closely at the head and the bills of these two birds, you can see pine siskin, that bill is got a unique adaptation for plucking seeds out of pine cones and wildflower seed heads. It's fine, almost like tweezers. And you can see the goldfinch also is adapted to plucking seeds from wildflower seed heads. It's just a little bit heavier and a little bit shorter. So streaky breast, tweezer-like bill, just a little splash or wash of yellow as opposed to, let's call it a hint of yellow on the pine siskin as opposed to a little bit more yellow, even in the winter plumage of the American goldfinch. Now, so getting a feeder, filling it with seeds, boom, done, right? Well, there's yet again a little bit more to it, and that comes with us being good stewards of what we're trying to. We're trying to, help our bird friends. We're trying to help them through what's kind of can be a tough time of year in terms of finding food, but we don't want to do any harm. And sometimes things like this happen. Conjunctivitis is super common amongst our finches, especially. These are birds that are drawn to those tube style feeders. And as they stick their bills in to grab those seeds, they're likely going to be touching the surface of the feeder. And just like, when a kid comes to school with a drippy nose and, touches a desk, and then the kid next to him reaches over, touches that same spot, pretty soon the whole classroom has a drippy nose, or worse, especially in this pandemic time that we're in. But conjunctivitis is something that's spread very, very easily amongst birds. It's It is a treatable condition if the bird can be caught and gotten to a wildlife rehabber, but prevention is absolutely the best approach to this disease. Salmonella is something, it's been reported in other parts of the country. I'm not aware of any outbreaks right now in Illinois, but it is, again, something that's spread when birds are gathered together. And it's a nasty disease, to an illness that birds often do not recover from. So that's a risk that we run by offering this free food, this artificial or man-made source of food. We're creating these artificially large gathering points, and the risk of disease spreading it can be quite high. So what we need to do is clean up our act. I always heard of this being well, really more of like a 3-step process. One, you scrape and get rid of as much of the debris as you can with a dry brush, and then you scrub it with dish soap to cleanse it a little bit more, and then you apply the bleach solution. Or there's now some commercial disinfectants being sold specifically for bird feeders. But the key to all of this is making sure that the disinfectant or sanitizing solution remains in contact with every surface on that feeder for at least 1 minute. That's what it's going to take to kill some of that bacteria and those other germs that are likely to spread those diseases. The instructions I read on different labels all said to dry the surfaces. I remember I used to be married to a dentist, and the disinfectants that he used always specified to allow that sanitizing or disinfecting solution to air dry. So I toss that on there, but follow whatever package direction, if you do buy a commercial disinfecting solution, it'll tell you for sure how the solution needs to dry. But these are the best things that we can do to take that good thing of offering food to birds, and then also making sure we're not offering up anything bad along with that. In the paper, I also mentioned that you run the risk, or maybe it's a benefit, depends on how you look at it. I think it's pretty cool. If you do put food out, you might not get only birds. I know some people get really aggravated and they say, I've got squirrels at my feeders. Well, it says bird seed on the label, but yeah, it's squirrel seed too. Nighttime feeder visitors might be anything from raccoons to deer. An easy way to minimize that, if you're not into feeding wildlife, actually I hope you are, but if you're not, just bring those feeders in, or have some sort of metal container that you keep outside that you can lock them away for the evening and then put them out again the next morning. But yeah, putting out birdseed is like putting out an invitation to a party. You just can't control that guest list. Now, from here, we're going to go on to another bird. Jerry, I have to thank you for these most excellent photos. This bird was visiting here in Illinois. It's one of, I don't know if we want to say several or many snowy owls that have been sighted now in northern Illinois. These are birds that push south from the Arctic. They come down here, just like the red poles and the pine siskins. They come down here in search of food. It's a very different kind of food, though. These guys are, as you can see by the name bubo, they are owls. They are predators. They are birds of prey. And we can see adults too, but what we often see more juvenile or immature birds than we do adults. Some years there's snowy owl eruptions as well, and we'll see birds of all ages, but a lot of times it's the younger birds. Maybe they don't have a great territory set up yet, so they come down here and do the best with what they find, which in this case, Jerry, you said that there was some evidence of Sorry for the graphic nature. I was going to put a warning up, so avert your eyes if you're sensitive to things like this. But this was a Canada goose that served. Yeah, well, it was either the owls. Well, it was definitely the owl's meal. It might have also served some other birds of prey too. Jerry did some homework and found that snowy owls will from time to time go after Canada geese. We don't know this goose's history. It is a large bird. It might have been injured prior to this ending, but if you're averting your eyes, you can look again because we're moving on. What that picture reminded me of was something that Facebook Marketplace thought I would be interested in. Yes, it's a box of goose heads. Believe it or not, I was kind of considering following up on this, but I didn't know what I would do with this many of them. If any of you are considering enhancing your decor with goose decoy heads and want to go in on this with me, let me know, because I haven't completely ruled it out yet. It looks that many goose heads I think could make quite the decorating statement. But yeah, your pictures, Jerry, reminded me of it. Hey, maybe you want to go in with me on it. Let me know. So since we're getting down and kind of gory, last week I said that we had placed a Carcass Cam out at a remote area of one of our Park District properties. The history on this was a young doe that was hit by a car. Back leg was broken. It did not survive the collision with the car. It was by the side of the road by our Hickory Knolls natural area. And some of the neighbors called in because they were afraid that the coyotes that would surely be attracted to this bounty would then pose a threat to their pets and their children. Now, we're hoping we can do some PR with those neighbors because coyotes, this was and probably a good hour's worth of effort on the part of our natural areas crew. This deer was pretty heavy. It was a small doe, but it was over 100 pounds. They had to lift it up into a truck. They had to drive it away. They had to find a remote area to put it down in. Then they had to lift it off. And if we'd been able to just leave it there, the coyotes would have cleaned it up for us at no cost to the taxpayers. But anyway, this did allow us an opportunity to set up a couple of game cameras. Here we've got one on the left there on a piece of conduit, and then we've got one on the right. I did the best that I could to camouflage it in a branch, which in the middle of a hayfield was probably not much camouflage at all, but we thought, well, let's see what happens. Now, I'd be interested if you guys want to put into the chat. Let me see, can I access the chat from here? Okay, yeah, if you guys want to put up on the chat what you think, what did I just do? Let's minimize that. What you think the first animal was to come to the Carcass Cam. I'll give you a hint. It was not the coyotes. This animal, let's see, we put this up on, let's see, this was late on December. This was the afternoon of December 23rd, I believe, 22nd. And on December 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, and 27th, this carcass, okay, dog, human with dog, crows, turkey, vulture, these are all great guesses. It was, a mature red-tailed hawk. Here's a little video. This was early on. This was on Christmas Eve. So this was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And let's try that again. I'm being told I've got low system resources, but maybe this will play for you. So we can tell this is a mature bird by the red tail and the dark eyes, and you can see it's taken little tiny little nips into the flesh there, having itself a little bit of a snack. Now, we'll see how it's tearing into the stomach area there. This was the night of December 26th, and lo and behold, who shows up but our friendly neighborhood coyotes. Look at this. Just, I'm a big fan of dogs. When I see my dogs tearing into a toy, I see a lot of these sorts of behaviors. That is a determined animal. You can see this is fairly typical of coyotes too. They tend to feed not up at the head, but towards the rear end of the animal. Over the next 2 days, this carcass really got torn apart. We have lots of footage. Because these files were quite large, I didn't insert a lot of them into this slideshow, but it was pretty cool to watch how over time this 100+ pound deer got reduced smaller and smaller. And all along, the coyotes were there at night. And watch it one more time. Nom, 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 nom. Some authentic nature sound effects for you there. The daytime, the hawk would return. Here he is back again. This is the 20. You can see how little of the deer remains. But this hawk, and I'm guessing it's the same adult mature adult. It might be a pair, but I don't know. These birds came back day after day after day after day. Today, there's no sign of that carcass. Everything's been dragged off, probably into the tree line, other places like that. But pretty cool footage and a pretty fun experiment. Now, some of you might know I've wanted to do these carcass cams. We've done it. I think we did it one other time over at Leroy Oaks. This was inspired by a visit I took to a nature center in outside of Oshkosh, Wisconsin. It was called Ledgeview Nature Center. If you ever get a chance to get up there, it's pretty cool. But they had a nicer name for theirs. It was like well, maybe it wasn't that much nature. It was like the Roadkill Cafe, something like that, where they would, on purpose, they would get a county roadkill deer from the county highway department. They would put it in a remote area of their property. And then over time, they would record the huge variety of animals that they would get. They would get even little things like chickadees would come in to pull out some of the fat, just the way we see chickadees on our suet feeders. They were seeing chickadees pulling on the fat of the deer that they put out. Skunks and blue jays and crows, red fox, gray fox, lots and lots of animals. We might try this again if there's a deer that's unlucky enough to get hit on our property and we're lucky enough to find it. We might try this again, but just a neat window. And I hope we can show our neighbors at the nature center that it's not just a magnet for something that might kill your pets. It's far from that. It's it's a great bonus for animals that need to eat. So anyway, we will keep our fingers crossed for this winter. We might be able to try this experiment again. Now, Christy, I have to thank you for this next segment. We're going to segue from coyotes feeding on a roadkill deer to another coyote just being a coyote. This was at the Fox River Bluff East Forest Preserve. I believe, Christy, was this today or yesterday? It was very recently.
Yeah, it was this morning.
Okay, and was there a bit of alarm amongst the good citizens of your neighborhood?
I think most of the neighbors are kind of used to them at this point. I have a wildlife rehabber, and she comments that she sees them in her backyard all the time as well. Yeah, I mean, there are some people with smaller dogs that put up an alarm, but I really enjoy them.
Okay. Yeah. No, they're, and this, you'd made the comment that this one looked pretty big. And if there's a time of year when they're going to look big, it's now. They've got that extra thick coat of fur on. And it does sometimes, some people will look at it and say it's a wolf or a coy wolf, which is something, the idea of coyotes and wolves interbreeding, that was put forth on a PBS special several years ago. But last I heard, there wasn't any evidence of that sort of activity in our area at all. We don't have any hybrid coyote wolf animals running around. But we do have some pretty large coyotes in Illinois. The coyotes that we have around here are just naturally larger than those that are seen out west. Out there, I believe the average weight is like 30 or 35 pounds. And here it's closer to 45 pounds. Sometimes they get over 50 pounds. So they're a good sized animal. Christy, I love that you went and took some photos, and look at that, used an object of measurement, a 2 5/8 inch lip balm to show the size of the coyote track, which falls right in line. This is a graphic from, I believe it's the Illinois Natural History Survey. Maybe it's IDNR, but here it shows a comparison of coyote, large dog, and gray wolf. Wolf prints are 4 to 5 inches, very large size, even compared to say a dog like a Labrador Retriever. A wolf will leave a much larger print. So appreciate you taking the photos as well. And I was also intrigued, Christy, by this one too. You've got the coyote picture there on the left, the track, and then right above that, does anybody recognize the tracks right above that? The one,
rabbit?
2, 4. So rabbit is what I tell you, this confused me to no end until I learned a little device, a learning memory device. See how those squares, I gave it away. See how those tracks are in a square? The animal around here that also starts with the SQ sound is squirrel. So square tracks like that. The smaller imprints are the front feet, and the larger are the back, and they tend to kind of leapfrog. So oftentimes the front tracks will appear behind the rear. So those are squirrel. But just the other day I was at Potawatomi, and I took this picture, and this is a rabbit. This rabbits, if you can picture a bunny, or you know how like when you put your fingers behind somebody in a photo, and you make like a little Y sound, the shape of a rabbit's ears and the letter Y are kind of the same. And here we've got a letter Y-ish shape of a track. So the rabbits, when they're on the move, especially, their 2 front feet, which are to the right side of this photo, they come down very close to each other, sometimes almost on top of each other. And then the 2 rear feet come down ahead of them. And so instead of seeing 4 distinct prints, we usually only see 3. Now, I don't know, this was as I was walking into the native plant garden behind Potawatomi, and this track caught my eye, and then I looked. And so at the bottom of the screen here, you can see the lip balm, you can see that track that I just showed you, but then look way at the top of the photo. That was where the rabbit landed in its next hop. And that distance was almost 6 feet away. So there was something that scared little Bugs Bunny. I don't know, I didn't see any signs of any I think the story ended okay for the rabbit. I think the rabbit was okay. I didn't see any signs that it met its demise. These tracks did lead up to an overgrowth of prairie plants where it took some cover. So I don't know. We do see hawks a lot of times at Potawatomi. There's the eagles along the river. Something scared this bunny, and boy, did it spring forward almost 6 feet from one track to the next. So yeah, so a 3-part track like that looks kind of like a Y or a V will be a rabbit, and then a track that's in the shape of a square most of the time will be a squirrel. All right. Just wanted to revisit this topic for a couple of slides, John and Bobby. I have to thank you for this. Last week we talked about the little gingerbread house disaster we had during our marketing department Christmas. And then John, you sent me a link to, I have to tell you, this is how I spent New Year's Eve. I watched this movie called Beginning of the End. You can watch the full length movie on YouTube without commercial interruption, I might add. And it's this crazy sci-fi. This was made in 1957. It's really, I was sucked in the first 5 minutes because it actually takes place in Illinois, in central Illinois. It shows a road sign at in the early part of the movie, Champaign, Urbana, Rantoul, and then what I think is the fictitious town of Ludlow. Ludlow is near where the U of I was doing some, in the movie, I should add, the movie tells the story of a scientist played by Peter Graves who was doing some experimentation with radioactive seeds and growing these ridiculously large, like beach ball sized tomatoes and other types of vegetables. So anyway, the grasshoppers in the area started eating these radioactive seeds, and then they acquired a taste for blood. They get really big, and the special effects are just really really awesome. What I think they did was they had so here's the gist of the story is these giant, these grasshoppers eat the radioactive seeds. They get to be giant size, and they start marching northward, and they make their way into Chicago. So here's a woman who was getting dressed, and look who's looking in her window. No, it's not a creeper. It's a creeper, but it's a different kind of creeper. It's a grasshopper creeping up the side of her apartment building. So what they did to film this part of the movie, near as I could tell, was they had just a flat photo of this apartment building, and then they put grasshoppers at it and let the grasshoppers crawl over the photo. They did a little bit of special effects there on the side. Maybe they made a 3D model.
Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah. Oh, this was classic. They and here they are. They're crawling on the merchandise mart. I don't want to give. Well, actually, yes, I am. I'm going to give it away. So, spoiler alert: if you're planning on watching the movie, plug your ears. This scientist, Peter Graves, puts his scientific knowledge to work, and he decides, he realizes that the grasshoppers are communicating at a certain frequency. You'll hear this sound in the background that sounds vaguely like a grasshopper, but they get an oscilloscope, and he starts tinkering around with an artificial version of this grasshopper call, and he uses this captive grasshopper, which was pounding on the glass there, trying to break out and eat our heroes. So this was a very tense moment in the movie, but the plan was to mimic that frequency and then place it some speakers near the lakeshore and out on a boat and drive the grasshoppers into Lake Michigan. I'll leave it there. if you want to find out how it ends, go ahead and look it up, Beginning of the End, on YouTube, the full length movie. Just coincidentally, then the next day, I was having some New Year's treats and happened to stumble on another Hollywood arthropod inspired movie. This one, this was on Svengoolie. Didn't catch the name of it, but it was a tarantula that was giant size, and it attacked the town as well. So this one, I believe, was made in 1962. So the special effects were just a little bit better, but it was. I always love watching these movies because there's a little grain of truth, like with the grasshoppers. Yes, grasshoppers do call, and they do have a certain frequency. In this case, well, it was a giant spider, and the spider had fangs and venom, so that all was true. But the spider's lair was not at all what you would expect a tarantula to live in. This one was a little bit hokier, but you might be able to look at, if you're a fan of this kind of thing. It was the Svengoolie movie from New Year's Day. Now, we're going to transition from here into, we're going to stay in the arthropod arena for a few more slides. I got this text message from my friend Amber. She right now is up, they're up at their lake house in the North Woods of Wisconsin. They're doing a little bit of cleanup. And this was in their shed. She said, I see bitty mealworms to feed young. Do you think this is a paper wasp nest? We have so many bald-faced hornets, it could go either way. That is depending on whether hornets pack away insects for their wasp nursery. So this is Amber. In fact, she just did a presentation for her daughter's second grade class on things that sting and why we need to protect them. Like, I think she even dressed up like a bee, or maybe it was a wasp, to do her talk. So she's aware that wasps, this is one of their big benefits. A lot of people say, why do we even need wasps? All they do is sting. Well, they are wonderful predators of insects because that's what they feed their young. However, when a wasp captures whether it's a beetle larvae or a caterpillar, a moth or butterfly larvae, they don't bring the insect to the nest whole. They chew it up and they feed their larvae a masticated version of the larvae that they've captured. So the fact that these larvae were whole had me thinking that this was a post, that these things moved in after the wasps were done with the nest. So I started poking around a little bit. I learned about a wasp, a type of beetle in the UK that it's a parasitoid of wasps' nests, which means a parasitoid means that it results in the death of the wasp. But there wasn't anything coming up in the United States for that species of beetle. Then I started looking a little closer at it, and I thought, but this reminds me of something. And the something it reminded me of was carpet beetles, also known as dermestid beetles. These are the beetles. There's a few different species. They can be detrimental if they're in your house because some of them do feed on the natural wool fibers of carpets. They can be devastating if you are in a museum and you've got a lot of taxidermied specimens because they feed on the protein material found on those taxidermy mounts. But they also will be found in birds' nests and, as it turns out, wasp nests. So adagenous, I'm not going to even pretend like I know how to say that because in my head I'm going adagenous, like attaboy. But I texted back and forth with Amber. I said, does the head does the body to the tail, does it taper? Does the head larger? And you can kind of see it in that individual there right in the middle. It's sort of upside down, but the head is larger and the tail is smaller. The bodies have fine hairs covering them. The body tapering part is how we got to that genus, but from there, I'm not even going to attempt to guess what the species was, but it was just kind of a neat discovery that, yeah, it's a crummy old wasp nest, but it is still food, in this case, for a family of beetles. Right, Joe? All right, so got one more thing we're going to try tonight. This was inspired by a couple of you who have been watching our fireside chats here. You want to know what is on the mantle. Well, I tell you, there's a lot of dust up there, but there's some other things too. So I'm going to stop the share now, and we're going to go back. There's a fair number of items. I tried to straighten things up a little bit. Does anybody have a question or want to see something in particular, or know the story behind it? There's a story behind pretty much everything. And if you don't pick something, I will. Well, let's see.
The boomerang has caught my eye.
The boomerang. So, I have two boomerangs. I have this one, and then I have the one that I play with, the Whammo boomerang. I've never gotten the hang of how they are, on TV and cartoons where you throw it and it this goes and it comes back. Never gotten to this age, but this was my gift from my friend Joe when he went to Australia, and he made me promise that I would not wreck this one the way I did my other one, and that I would always think of him whenever I saw it. So, yep, it's a dusty boomerang, and it is actually from Australia. I believe it was painted, it was hand painted, but it's untested in the field. Put this back. And let's see. Let me open up the chat here. Oh, the bottle opener. So I think yeah. So if I move out of the way here, maybe you can see one of my favorite of I think this was it's from the Great Smoky Mountains. So, tourist trap shop after tourist trap shop. That's the high gloss cedar knick-knacky types of places. This one has the immortal saying that beauty is in the eye of the beer holder. And yeah, it's super handy. So let's see. What are the round, colorful things in the middle? Oh, these are my yo-yos. So when I was in fourth grade, my teacher was Mr. Lovely. It really was his name. In fact, our band teacher was named Mr. Sweet, and they used to sing that song, Sweet and Loverly. But Mr. Lovely was big into yo-yos, and he shared his passion with us, and I have had a fondness for them ever since. If you're lucky, this will work. Do a little, can I do a walk the dog? Yeah. That's gonna get these guys all fired up. Oh, all right. Boomerangs, yo-yos, they're all dangerous. So yes, there's a jackalope up top here. And there is a Canadian Mountie. Yeah, this was a really cool Christmas ornament, but I can't remember which furry roommate got a hold of it. So the furry Mountie, I can still play with him, but somebody chewed his string off, so I can't hang him up anymore. So he's just got to hang out here on the mantle. Oh. And then, yeah, Jerry, you saw the jackalope. So what you might actually, because the jackalope was a little bit out of frame. So that's the brass moose was a gift from a friend who I can't remember how the moose puns started, but it was in the 80s when we all had moose in our hair, and somehow that transitioned over to Moose the animal, and it was an ongoing joke. I've got a little stuffed moose in a can that she sent me one time. That was a hat rack in my office for several years. And then, but somehow, Jerry, you knew that, yeah, I have a jackalope too, from Wall Drug. And furry roommates love it when I get this down and chase them around the house. Actually, you know what? One of the furry roommates somehow managed to find a sweet potato. There might be some crunching or there might be some growling if they all decide they want to eat it. Come here, Bo. Well, anyway, yeah, so yeah, the moose, the moose and the jackalope, and there's a deer hanging up here too. That was a housewarming gift way back when. It's I don't know, 8 or 10 point buck that I don't think I can get down, and I'm not sure I can move the camera up to show it. But the mantle here has, I used to spend a lot more time down here, and I would come in, the way my house is arranged, I would come in from the garage over behind me here, and I would put all kinds of things on the mantle, and it's just kind of become this repository for all kinds of cool nature things. And yes, a lot of dust as well. You know, a couple of weeks, maybe it was more like a month ago, we had talked about bittersweet. This is how bittersweet will entwine around a branch and you know, really choke it off. This is actually bittersweet entwined around itself. I had thought that maybe it would make, and I could make a cool piece of furniture out of it. I thought these would make some dandy legs or maybe some trim, but it gets so brittle when it dries out. I was, you know, it really is good for nothing. This Oriental bittersweet, it breaks off very easily. So my aspirations of making furniture from a pernicious invader didn't quite pan out. So yeah, Wall Drug, I actually, you know, maybe next week I'll remember to bring down my other Wall Drug purchase. You know, you go to, if any of you have ever been to Wall Drug in Wall, South Dakota, it's another, I guess I sort of have a fondness for tourist traps because that's really what the place is. But it's little building after little building. They're all kind of connected together and they all have different themes. There is one entire room of these jackalopes, and you can pick whichever one, you know, is speaking to you. I also have upstairs a ceramic candy dish in the shape of a rattlesnake. That was probably during hour 2 or 3 of wandering through Wall Drug. I'll see if I can remember to bring that down another time. That might make a nice little accompaniment to the schmutz we have piled up around here on the mantle. Yeah, you really can't, good point, Michelle. You really do kind of have to stop after seeing the repeated ads as you're driving along, because there's not a whole lot else for quite a long stretch. Once you get to Wall Drug, there is a lot of, I mean, South Dakota's got some amazing things, but I believe their big claim to fame when they first opened, wasn't it the free water, or water was 5 cents, or glass of water, something like that. So yeah, next stop, House on the Rock. Look out. Yeah. Pigeon Forge. I've as much as I love the pristine natural areas and the wonderful national park system we have in this great country, I love a good tourist trap too. So, next week, maybe I'll have my warm beverage in I have a mug from the Fishing Hall of Fame up in Hayward where they've got the giant muskie, because I couldn't resist that either. Anyway, does anybody have anything else for the good of the group this evening? Certainly appreciate you tuning in on what is a bit of a breezy night. They say we're going to have a couple of cold days coming up. I'm really glad to be here by the fire, and I'm really glad you were able to join this night. Yeah, we'll do a show. That's a great idea, Wallace. If you've got anything handy, we can start now. And if not, we can put that on the docket for next week. Oh, thought I was going to catch. Somehow tech support puppy found a sweet potato, and he is not going to give it up. Boker, come here. Come on. No, not going to do it. All right. Well, anyway, everyone. Julia says, so you've got owls. Are they hooting right now, Julia? I did have the owls on my roof. It was before Christmas. They were really hooting up a storm, and I haven't heard them now in probably 3 weeks, maybe a little bit more than that. I was hoping to maybe catch them. I put a trail cam on my bird bath outside, which we'll talk a little bit more next week about heated bird baths, but I haven't heard mine, and I was wondering if maybe they were already sitting on eggs. Oh, good question, Greg and Kelly. And I should have mentioned that. Cleaning bird feeders, they say every week to 10 days, but if you've got a lot of heavy use going on, it might be good to pull them in. Like a lot of times you'll see bird feeders getting a lot of visits prior to a storm. When that happens, when you've had a lot of birds coming in, it might be good to bring them in and give them a scrub, even if it's been less than a week. The suet cages fall into that category too. And with suet, you probably want to hit them with hot water before you do the rest of that cleaning. But yeah, you can't really clean them too much. But there is a danger if you don't do it often enough. But I would say minimum of once a week during heavy use times. All right. Well, you know what? Speaking of birds, we're going to sign off for tonight. But there's been a bird here who has been extremely well behaved this whole time. So he's going to come here, and he's going to wish you all happy Tuesday and a happy New Year. And hope we see you back again next week, everyone. Take care. Stay warm. Stay safe. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye, Pam. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great to see you.
Thank you, Pam.
Happy New Year. There we go.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, try it again. For heaven's sake. See ya.